Hey guys, this looks like a fun one. This is one of 7 math challenges that I found on the internet. I think it could be fun to do one of these every day for a week. And if you want to try this one, pause it right now because I'm going to solve it in 3, 2, 1. First, I want to make sure that we check -1, 0, and 1 because if these are the bases, you can have many different exponents and it'll still be true. So let's definitely try these later. Now let's see if we can find another value of x that'll work. First, let's copy everything down except for the inside of the parentheses. Using these notes, we can rewrite this square root of x as x to the 1/2 power. That's the difference between radical form and rational exponent form. The denominator of the exponent matches the index of the radical. So this cube root of x is going to be x to the 1/3. Once again, the denominator of the fraction matches the index of the radical. And now using these notes, anytime you have x to the a whole thing to the b, that's the same thing as x to the a times b. So this 1/2 is going to distribute to each of these. 1/2 times 2x is equal to 1x, and 1/2 times -1 is -1/2. And then on the right-hand side, this 1/3 is going to distribute to each of these. 1/3 times 6 is equal to 2, and 1/3 times -x is -x/3. Now we have a base of x to this exponent equals a base of x to this exponent. There's only 4 ways this could be possible. The first 3 are x could be either -1, 0, or 1, or it could also be possible if these exponents are equal to each other. Or in other words, drop the base. So now we have x minus 1/2 is equal to 2 minus x/3. Let's rearrange it like this, and we can get rid of these fractions by finding the lowest common denominator. For 2 and 3, that'll be 6. So let's multiply both sides of the equation by 6. On the left-hand side, the 6 is going to distribute to each of these, giving us 6x minus 3. And on the right-hand side, the 6 will distribute to these. 6 times 2 is equal to 12. And then we're going to subtract 6 times this, which will be 6x/3. And 6x/3 simplifies to 2x. Now we can get all the x's on the same side by adding 2x to both sides, and let's move this 3 over here by adding 3 to both sides. On the left-hand side, 6x plus 2x is equal to 8x, and these are going to cancel each other out. And then on the right-hand side, 12 plus 3 is equal to 15. Let's smush everything together, and to solve for x, we can divide both sides by 8. On the left-hand side, these 8's are going to cancel each other out, leaving us with x. And on the right-hand side, we have 15 divided by 8, which we will call 15/8. And that gives us a 4th possible answer. So now we got to try out x equals 15/8, x equals 0, x equals 1, and x equals -1. First, let's try out 15/8. So in the place of all the x's, let's plug in 15/8. So then using these notes, we can rewrite the square root of 15/8 as 15/8 to the 1/2. And then for the cube root of 15/8, we can rewrite that as 15/8 to the 1/3 power. Next, we can go up here. The 2 times 15/8, this 2 and this 8 are going to simplify to make this a 4. And then to do 15/4 minus 1, we can change the 1 into 4/4, and now they have a common denominator. And 15/4 minus 4/4 is equal to 11/4. And then using these notes, this 1/2 can multiply by the 11/4. So we're going to have 15/8 to the power of 1/2 times 11/4. And then 1/2 times 11/4, 1 times 11 is 11, and 2 times 4 is 8. So this will become 11/8. So on the left-hand side, we have 15/8 to the 11/8 power. So now looking at this exponent, we can rewrite the 6 as 48/8, and then 48/8 minus 15/8 is 33/8. And the 3 on bottom and the 33 on top will simplify to 11, so we end up with 15/8 to the 11/8. I'm not exactly sure what this equals, but it is the same on both sides, so this solution checks out. Next, let's try out x equals 0. So in the place of all the x's, we can plug in 0. First, let's simplify the parentheses. The square root of 0 is equal to 0, and the cube root of 0 is also equal to 0. And then for the exponents, 2 times 0 minus 1 is equal to -1. And then for this exponent, 6 minus 0 is equal to 6. So now we have 0 to the -1 equals 0 to the 6. Well, using these notes for negative exponents, anything to the -1 exponent will put that thing on bottom. So 0 to the -1 exponent is 1/0. And then on the right-hand side, 0 to the 6 is equal to 0. 1/0 is undefined, and it's definitely not equal to 0. So this x equals 0 is not a possible solution. Next, we can try out x equals 1. So in the place of all the x's, let's plug in 1. Inside of this parentheses, the square root of 1 is equal to 1. And for this one, the cube root of 1 is also equal to 1. And then 2 times 1 minus 1, that's equal to 1. So we have 1 to the 1 power, which is equal to 1. And then on the right-hand side, 6 minus 1 is equal to 5, and 1 to the 5 power is also equal to 1. So the solution x equals 1 does check out. And now let's try x equals negative 1. So in the place of all these x's, let's plug in negative 1. Using these notes right here, we can call the square root of negative 1 I, and the cube root of negative 1 is equal to negative 1. Now in this exponent, 2 times negative 1 is equal to negative 2, and negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. So on the left-hand side, we have I to the power of negative 3, and the negative exponent means we can put it on bottom, so this is 1 over I cubed. And then to rationalize the denominator, we can multiply top and bottom of this by I. On bottom, I times I cubed is equal to I to the 4th, and on top, I times 1 is equal to I. And using these notes, I to the 4th is equal to 1. So the left-hand side is equal to I. And then on the right-hand side, 6 minus negative 1 is the same thing as 6 plus 1, and that's equal to 7. And negative 1 to an odd power is equal to negative 1. So on the right-hand side, we end up with negative 1. Since I does not equal negative 1, this solution is not valid. So these two solutions didn't work, but these two did. So the final answer to this math challenge is x equals 15/8 or x equals 1. Let's put a box around it. How exciting. And then going back to these, let's do this one for tomorrow. It says the square root of 6 to this exponent is equal to 216, and it wants us to solve for x. How exciting.